not good. The first advantage is strategic stability as unraveling in the status quo. The missile defense review is the rejection of mutual nuclear vulnerability. Russia and China perceive new systems as undermining second strike capabilities. All 19 missile defense systems. Russia China started missile defense aimed at defending against those strong defense systems. Defending against missiles. Russia China concerned about what it moves signal the system. On our stability and strategic relation to building missile defense means evading mutual vulnerability. At least the MBR opens the system. The US has no longer relied on mutual vulnerability, and Aegis destroys the possibility of effective deterrence with China and Russia. Information sharing and operational integration make Aegis systems distinct from other weaponry. Regarding 18 Aegis conduct defense during defense imagery, infiltrating the operative parts of the integration missile defenses. Controversial China Russia and and opposite levels of average missile defense to without vulnerability, eroding China to Russia deterrence vis-a-vis Japan and US and destabilizing relations, and that's the only scenario for inadvertent escalation. The survivability of nuclear weapons is the only incentive for conflict time bomb. In all 18 years, the connected research and conventional weapons and Beijing where weapons might be able to destroy the nuclear forces crisis instantly remains a potential cause of inadvertent escalation driven by concerns about force survivability, escalation, likely risk of conventional weak powers that can rely heavily on nuclear weapons have powerful incentives to start wars. The importance of driving factors of escalation is difficult to overstate in crisis. The belligerent parties' perception of survivability of their own nuclear forces would be the key determinant of crisis stability. Scenario 1 is Russia. The new sale of Aegis restore systems to Japan undermines strategic stability and prompts Russian retaliation. There's no war-fighting benefit, but sales solidify mistrust and cause Russian arms build-up policy. 18 opposition over 2 Aegis systems connect from Russia. The distributed stability system to be viewed as reported missile threats and undermines strategic stability. The Aegis represent continuous PNTVs with defense. Unlike that, Aegis are intended for GSO to official level system will be operated in Japan. Moscow continues accusation of Japan Aegis video Arsenal 2023 Tokyo plays equipped system with advanced estimably budget weight and interpretation Russia's Tokyo the Aegis and US missile defense which contributes to strategy and stability. The scenario Aegis systems will not pose a threat to Russian ICB. Observe reasons Russian for the Aegis possesses offensive capabilities. There are reasons maybe Russia's fear of use cruise missiles. The first perceived as representing threats to national security. Continued modernization of like Russia's fear cruise missiles will be examined by the deployment to Aegis and Japan players receive installation and by Washington to survive Russia afraid of surprise attack at Moscow. Has not objective Japan fielding Aegis being equipped with the test of Moscow. Allegation US control confined only systems express will be made by US personnel. Allegation produce lasting impact on Russian-Japanese relations. During the Pacific region resolution and corral undisputed that plan prevents Russian arms split up, stops US missile defense deployments that give Russia justifications of funnel resources and the threatening capabilities. Otherwise, that goes nuclear for check 18. Russia's arguments of defense undermines mutual vulnerability. Russia brave the first technically capabilities of argument fellowship before so often the attacks defense cannot utilize such a data deterrent. Russia's have vulnerability for the climate missile defense claims to strategy predicated on isolation control of its adversary field listing which can breach the nuclear threshold on TMD makes Russia justifiability shooting weapons and destroy Russian funnels resources and threatening capabilities, and new Russian weapons dramatically increases the likelihood of miscalculation and nuclear accidents. Major 18 Russian nuclear development straight out of control with broken new strategic weapons. Moscow has worked on defeating American Navy the best ever completely bypassing current missile defense and nuclear powered cruise missiles will have an unlimited range action station. It's just a question of near distant reality. There are counters to defeat Russian nuclear arsenal limits. Developments for its accidents, arms and tools needed to speed weapons and problematic for Russian investing making and destabilizing future activity in the US Russia to be agreed by hostile Western actions. Being said that everything was to deter Western aggression, and once a minor conflict starts, it escalates. Neither side has de-escalation measures in place, and both leaders are conflict prone. 17 Putin's favorite tactic is escalation on sets escape where Avastop Putin or Trump already and China expert advice Putin and Trump concluded the leaders are versus attitude by Putin toward whether for nuclear weapons. Trump has been accused of lashing a priestly light from Putin length authority and for the working increase of violence and boil up to an unintended clash ability to cover from mishaps securely due to war change medical security environment unpredictable, and only a US Russia war causes extinction. Barrett in all 17 even on nuclear continuous in Russia the aftermath could be Russia's acts with the US nuclear international skills and possible units of Russia's longer to likely to lead to human extinction relatively bonus like there are also layers of human extinction as policy geared for a to the US and Russia is defensive. Goal-based in 17 Russian responsive to the level of powers of action taken by the West African Republic is rooted in structural analysis made Russia act aggressively, takes strategy, acts intentionally, get pressing to gain regional defensive risk nothing, seeks one as much power as possible, they continue to maintain the existing balance of powers, revolutionary excellence, the Ukraine approach, the annexation of Crimea, both perceived by action taken by Western countries pretty aggressively as Western acts although the static their relative power Russia can be considered in inspiring hegemon technology, fast and economic potential is weak. Russia Putin was forced to apply some version of the Monroe Doctrine. In the second scenario is Chinese nuclear modernization is constrained, but BNB sales force China to make a strategic shift and develop weapons to maintain second strike capability. Logan in 17 China medicine view breakout Beijing will develop nuclear capability to reduce conventional superiority, changing nuclear force 0 century to China's singular evolution appears to be driven to maintain the second strike capabilities. China's nuclear arsenal is trained by limited view of the utility of weapons in the sale of advanced BMD systems for the defensive offensive line that collapses strategic stability is first Chinese missile defense modernization. So like 16 Japan negotiating procurement of Aegis and is negotiating procurement of Aegis in places to prevent protection against ballistic missile damage. Japan deep for China's with a billion with modern BMD system. There is the line between defensive nature and offensive alteration to the S3 intercept of the Aegis offensive potential US played a larger role in Japanese BMD policy. Aegis regarding self-defense operation because infiltrating races with the independence of weapons can no longer be constrained to defend against ballistic attacks. China's race concern using missile location of nuclear deterrent. China's preserving Japanese BMD so as the thin line could be present and procure more offensive weapons that can lead to tech transfer that only between ballistic missile leaks and Japanese BMD probably anticipate that Aegis were capable of countering one limited ballistic attack. China's taking command for security policy and the US for undermining global stability, and that causes fast Chinese modernization. Lewis in von Hibbelstein was embarking factory expansion strategic BMD by the 2020 plans and employment of SMG Watch interceptors Japan interceptors are intended for deployment on land sites. The new start may be effective in only condition where there's no build of missile defense capabilities politically trying to increase missile China has to be able to build war has viewed response to US BMD program large scale deployment of defense systems could lock into high numbers of nuclear weapons, and Chinese modernization goes nuclear. Logan 17. Commentators are trying to develop nuclear warfare developmentally trying to introduce global conventional this nuclear next generation China's new nuclear arsenal modernization, changing the character of nuclear forces, changes divided their 1,800 strike, trying to identify advancing US capabilities, missile defense force, the missile defense series, nuclear forces, China possesses economic and technological basis to develop nuclear capabilities for creating Chinese nuclear policy driven by perceived threats from US being Chinese perception to trigger nuclear by the US relationship is best served by strategic restraint, and China is defensive, cooperative, and compliance with global norms. 19. China showed less of a tendency to countries embracing advanced realism. China forged friendly relations between the border disputes from Pakistan, Russia, and Vietnam. China engaged in the international community. China sought the WTO. China has taken part in non-proliferation regime. China's working the world to work in Russia nominations. China pursued the neighbor policy compliance with norms, but hit over the countries across status quo. China's compliance with sovereignty, trade, arms control, and human rights. China defenders absolute sovereignty. China is fair with the ability violation. China has the CTBT, also the NPC, trying to get along, trying to get a treaty with man, women's in space. China plays stabilizing world. Korea. China seems to be positioning itself as a champion of globalization. Thus, the plan: the United States federal government should substantially reduce its direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of Aegis ballistic missile defense systems to Japan. The second advantage is North Korea. The threat of North Korea is increasing. The deployment of boost-phase defenses deters North Korea, but doesn't provoke Russian and Chinese retaliation. Lewis and von Hibbelstein galvanized with North Korea and SBS working at the same time. B&D as we watch winter because the plans that Aegis force interceptors increase Russian and Chinese perceptions of the threat of deter valuable ballistic missile forces that ultimately drive Russian Chinese offensive control the side open in the joint occasional weather expanding defensible and boost-phase missiles defense offers a fix of North Korean ICBMs and addresses Russian and Chinese concern countermeasures are less of a problem for boost-phase interception because of the quote how to false side rocket booster boost-phase. We mentioned strengthening Russia and China would be less likely to trade offensive its competition boost-phase could be operational within 3 years. Recognition the consequent investing black to US and might lead us to restoring deployment of reduced numbers of interceptors significantly reduce Russian and Chinese concerns and boost-phase defenses increase the effectiveness of the US deterrence posture. Reducing Aegis is the only way to divest resources to increase boost-phase defenses. 19. Taking out prerogative avian systems, taking out of nuclear installation by remaining arsenal guarantees destruction of systems deployed. Aegis restore China and Russia grew increasingly alarm concerns to be seen in China will bolster its arsenal of its nuclear forces and effective interceptors must be positioned close to the launch area, which with recent advances with viable boost phases within reach lasers have the advantage of near instantaneous time to target boost phase defense offers a key strategic advantage to hand and be placed close to target batteries. Could intercept North Korean missiles but not launch from deep within China and have verifiably limited ranges. And North Korea will first strike because of nuclear overconfidence limitations. False warning. 19 cases of North Korea's nuclear weapons will should be a nuclear force watcher the near defense of U.S. North Korea's capability increases size of the conflict against nuclear strikes and non-conflict North Korea may be tempted to initiate provocation and escalate crisis over score the game and it has nuclear against nuclear capabilities allowed to manage and escalating the eventual conflict. And North Korean war goes global nuclear action. 17 nuclear conflict North Korea that expect the consequences that one is nuclear radicals global cause of water conflict does not have the capacity but the dangerous most sensitive escalation lead to a competition with US and China. China's arsenal certainly enough for a large-scale nuclear war and the plan solves exercising restraint the deployment of missile defense bolsters strategic stability. Lewis and von Hibbelstein would exercise restraint the deployment of missile defense use and systems and armed Russian and strategic missiles and missiles ensure provocation Moscow imaging and new arms using exercising restraint beauty deployments reduced with peer to peer Russian and Chinese deterrence the watch way in terms of greater problem might be possible to limit the total number of interceptors and there's no disads. The DoD rejected Japan's request to buy F-35s meta and also in 29 Japan expressed interest in the F-35 program by the Pentagon issued that request. Japan's request creates major political headaches. The F-35 office will defense use the partnership and validity additional wave of F-35 investors. The F-35 cooperative partnership with the Pentagon discussions with the Japan become a partner related to nations demanding similar access. You also partner in Turkey took place appears in Russia and increasing and steaming the program. DoD is along the heading for the yes. I guess mark it before the last sentence. After with the program.
Which card were you on?
I was on the meta card, just didn't get to the Togus piece of it.
Okay, cool. Alright, good?
Yeah.
Cool. The North Korea advantage, the 5th card down is this Lewis and von Hippel evidence.
Yeah.
The card says, quote, such restraint could be conditioned on Russia's agreement to institute further nuclear reductions or at least a force-aware increases and possibly a commitment by China to limit its buildups. What is your answer besides theory to the conditions counterplan?
I mean, we'll have no arguments about how, we'll have specific arguments that Russia would say no to the condition, that the U.S. needs to make a concession first. We have plenty of answers to the conditions, and I don't think,
it's about a unilateral concession of Aegis spurring.
In the context of the North Korea scenario,
why would Russia or China, if they're so scared about this, why would they ever say no?
Well, our argument is that they think that first the U.S. shouldn't be able to send systems to Japan in the first place. So if they think that it's the U.S. encroaching on their space of influence,
over there.
I agree.
Sold like Aegis ships.
I agree that we have Aegis ships, but I think our Ev assumes those things. Plotski Ev makes a comparative claim and says that new Aegis ashore systems specifically upset China and Russia. I can give you several reasons. One is the offensive capabilities that they could acquire when missiles can be upgraded and added to the interceptors.
I'm just confused on why Russia would ever say no if they're that scared.
Jackson, I'm not going to read the 2AC to you. I'm not going to read the 2AC to you on our conditions counterplan, but I will assure you that we have answers aside from theory.
Okay, can I ask, how does it result in boost phase defense?
Yeah, so the Dyna-Ev says that we need to make a concession on Aegis. There's a couple of different ones. One is that the U.S. thinks that because we have Aegis near Japan that we don't need other BMD systems to counter the North Korean threat. RF says that if the U.S. didn't have Aegis, then we would identify the need for boost phase
Why
defenses.
is boost phase distinct from Aegis? And
Yeah,
why
so
why
boost
does North
phase.
Korea perceive that?
Well, it's not even a question of North Korea not striking. The argument that the Dun-Ev and the piece of Ev before that makes is that boost phase is much more effective at, I guess, preventing the strike from hitting the U.S. or
How so?
wherever the strike, because it intercepts the missiles in the boost phase. The Dun-Ev says that new lasers that are a part of the boost phase defense systems are effective at shooting down the missiles when they're in their boost phase.
It also talks about communication networks that makes these systems more effective.
Yeah, so it's like the strategic utility of them, but also the like physical capacity of those weapons.
That's fine. Why does on the strategic stability advantage? It's all about why like Russia's building up now in response to the Aegis. Why does pulling out reduce that arms race?
Yeah, I think RF also makes a reverse causal claim
Which
that
piece of
Russia.
evidence do you think makes that claim?
I think that the Lewis and von Hippel Ev and also another piece of Ev, I can't remember the exact author, but even if we don't win the reverse causal claim, our Ev is hyper-specific to Russia and China, modernizing in response to Japan Aegis Ashore procurement.
Then I would be confused as to why you don't need to win a reverse causal claim.
Because the argument is that since they're doing it in direct response to those developments, if those developments were no longer there, then they'd have no incentive to modernize because they're not going to worry about maintaining their second strike capability if the U.S. isn't deploying systems that they fear
Aegis
would reduce
Ashore is
that.
literally the only thing they care about in order to
I
maintain
mean,
a second
we'll
strike
answer your own
capability.
causes in the 2AC, but I think the 1AC is built to answer them because we've read Ev that not only compares Aegis Ashore to Aegis ships that have already been located there, it also compares them to things like that. We'll answer your thumpers about Poland and Romania because Aegis Ashore can be offensively upgraded, which uniquely makes them upset.
Okay. I'm setting it up. It's 6 off. Then the strategic stability advantage, and then the North Korea advantage. Is it okay if we borrow y'all's stand?
Yeah.
I'm sitting it right now. Here, should be something. Just let me know when you're like it.
Sorry, I'm just pulling
Yeah,
it.
that's okay.
Okay, we both have it.
Okay, cool. Anyone not good? Cool.
First off, C substantial. Substantial reduction must be greater than 2.7%. Portella 10 USD estimated arms sales China were not substantial, may go with 2.7% of military equipment volume sales. Rates fall according to experts' estimates. Violation. Japan doesn't meet and the plan is smaller than that. Voting issue. They allow tiny country-specific access to explosive limits and stops predictable net ground. Second off is T reduce. Reducers first. Two sweeping measures that establish qualitative or quantitative limits on weapons exports. That's distinct from restrictions on specific states or types of weapons. Pearson 88 restriction of sales and sales of market specific state classes and specific types of weapon reduction and transfer include more sweeping measures, qualitative or quantitative ceilings, and policies to curtail weapons export. Voting issue for limits and ground. They justify minor modifications to arm transfer that avoid core, neg offense, and expose the topic, dex education, and fairness. Third off is the climate offsets counter plan. The United States federal government should require that direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of Aegis ballistic missile defense systems to Japan are offset with climate financing. It competes. Offsets are an intrinsic component of sales. BIS 19 offsets prior to required as a condition of purchase and government commercial sales or any offset is reflected in contract specifies the forms of compensation are required. Economic offsets close the climate financing gap. Eklund 16 climate economic offset packages can close the climate financing gap. Use of offsets have the be an attractive alternative weapons. DC has proven a critical method for firms to maintain sales of countries agree to spend. Offsets for climate mitigation. The US will be billing closer to 100 billion climate finance, but solves warming. COVID-19 climate finance. Developing countries account for 60% of emissions are expected to contribute 90% of emission growth. Poor country can make cuts if supported by wealthier nations. Advocacy challenge mobilizing money is critical for legitimacy in the climate financing project in the Paris Agreement. Extinction. Sprat 19 seas may rise 25 meters beyond special human survivability. Devastating wildfires to right. Heat wave, drought, inundation, ecosystem collapse, nation, unviable, agony, non-viable food production, inadequate prices, skyrocket, catastrophic decline, insect population, chronic water shortages, islands, again, uninhabitable human civilization coming to an end. And fourth off is the condition counter plan. The United States federal government ought to substantially reduce its direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of Aegis ashore ballistic missile systems to Japan if and only if the Russian Federation reduces its nuclear stockpiles and the People's Republic of China agrees to never increase its nuclear stockpiles. The counter plan solves and is legitimate. They have highlighted around the condition in their solvency advocate. LASA reads yellow. Lewis and Hibbel and 18. The United States should consider exercising some restraint in the ballistic missile defense deployment such a conditional Russia's agreement to institute further nuclear reductions and a commitment by China to limit its buildup. Fifth off. Chinese strategic mode is inevitably derail relations. Only maintaining Trump's current strategy can deter erosion of global order and stability. Blackwall. And 5-7, China used economic tools to coerce its neighbors, violate international commercial practices, committed massive theft, manipulators currency threat Taiwan buildup. Military forces and militaries are artificial islands, prolonged failure in China policy could turn out to be the rise of China in power over the world order. The Trump administration adopted a much more clear approach to China that breaks with many of the errors of the past. But best scholarship and empirical evidence proves that China's expansionist the plan's concession will only greenlight further aggression and empower nationalists, increasing the risk of war. Wang and 18, there's no conclusive evidence to support eliminating China. Beijing is likely to see such a concession as China growing U.S. weakness. Beijing would likely voice for more concession on other issues. U.S. attempting to accommodate China puts winning arms sales instead of moderating foreign policy. And China should use unilateral concession as signs of American weakness to prove that China could get away with more assertiveness. Loss of great power competition with China risks global war. Cohen 13 as sacred territory, waters and mineral resources, symbol of China's driver hegemony. American state regret the world in which the U.S. was the ultimate security guarantor of the entire international system. World in which the U.S. abdicates leadership will be understood to solve in which China sets the role. Politics. 6 stop is the Russia appeasement to sad. Russia is a revisionist. Human psychology, domestic and foreign action, and official state documents prove Macias in 18. The views ignore what we know. The mindset of the criminal in the worldwide reach of Russian cyber warfare and black ops and grievances Putin expressed against Western democracy. Grievances are rooted in personal experience, traumatizing the U.S. as our collapse. Putin sought to return Russia great power size by weakening competing powers or annexing state trade. Strengthen Russia as a nation state immediate objective Russian foreign policy, our aggressive systemic pursuit of military neutralization, NATO, the EU creation of anti-liberal governance, the reconstruction of Russian spheres of influence, and the rejection of Russian power to the world. Putin has ruthlessly pursued these objectives using natural resources, invasion of Ukraine, rapid decrease in spending, and the annexation of Crimea, rebuilding nuclear arsenal. Putin is promising to bring back the Soviet Union, infiltrated co-op to shut down Russian democratic. Putin invests in modernization of Russian nuclear arsenal, on display Ukraine and Crimea cyber warfare capabilities, on display manipulate American voters, and into place. So all Russian espionage. Putin has positioned Russia as conservative alternative liberal democracy. The Russia's grand strategy represents seeking over the existing order. Risk of conflagration between Russia and NATO is serious. U.S. arms are checking Russian expansionism through evolving warfare. Dalger. In 15, Russia's success would fatally undermine Ukraine's stability. Might tend to Putin use his doctrine protecting ethnic Russians, seeking territorial changes elsewhere, providing a direct challenge to NATO West means of ultra deterrence in Ukraine by raising the actually market at Ukraine. Russian expansionism leads to nuclear war. Grade 17 relationship between Russia and the U.S. could evolve into war by asking about miscalculation. Expansion must be halted. Russian state policy is today driven by a clear vision of renewing Putin military instruments heavily dependent upon nuclear weapons. The challenge for the U.S. is originally stopped Putin's campaign and track before lethal damage of the international order. Strategic stability. All of the evidence is about the new SM-3 interceptors that go to the Asia system, not Aegis Ashore itself. Their author, Lewis and Von Hibbel in 2020, the U.S. Navy plans to begin deployment of faster SM-3 block 2A receptor block 2A interceptors intended for deployment on the water. And the 85 Aegis that the U.S. Navy plans to operate. The Navy's current standard missile does not have a large enough range to protect coverage. The Navy is launching 100 long-range block 2A interceptors that can provide the coverage each Aegis BMW ship with only 90 vertical boxer cells, 5 each. Cells on these ships that house block 2A interceptors total will be 425. The plan just says that they would reduce the sale of Aegis Ashore ballistic missile defense systems. That does not include the SM-3 missiles, which were a separate deal. Gady. In 19, the U.S. approved the sale of 2 Aegis Ashore batteries to Japan. The sale included signal processing, radio equipment, maritime hardware, and inertial and navigation system. The Aegis Ashore site will be capable of firing the SM-3 interceptors. The U.S. approved the sale of the 8 SM-3 block IB missiles and the 13 SM-3 block 2A missiles for the estimated cost of $561 million. November 2018, January 2018. The U.S. also approved the sale of 4 SM-3 block 2A missiles to Japan. Too many all causes to strategic stability. Their author, Groening. In 18, the U.S. deploys SPOI radars and TVY-2 for Japan to provide strong long-range airspace surveillance. Japan's indigenous missile defense platform will address storage in the U.S. regional deployed missile. Assets Japan military defense developed monitoring a C2 components, namely C2 platform. The U.S. began operating a C2 BMC at Yukoto Airbase in 2014, the second in. TVY deploying Kyoto in 2016, 7 Aegis SM-3 equipped destroyers were established upgrades, so the SM-3 and Aegis missile defense platform of Japan and U.S. Aegis ships. Russia and China is considered to be represented, however, current army missile defense, including rail grounds and directed energy weapons off the potential to reduce ally vulnerability, thereby eroding deterrence. Mark, at deterrence, the Russia scenario. Russia complains all the time. Their author, Plusky and 18, abduction stationing of EFD as Asia Pacific or non-new deployment of that. Posing a heavy criticism of both Moscow and Beijing, but Russia's objection to Japan's Aegis storage could have been carried over Europe, where Moscow has been for years strongly objected to the installation of two Aegis Ashore system to Romania and Poland. Russian arms buildup is not reverse causal. They don't have a piece of evidence that says that Russia would scale back development, and Russian arms racing is not because of Aegis, and it's been happening for years. Piper and 16 Russia's in the midst of major modernization of arms that are driven by Putin's ambition to support revenues of 2004-2014 modernizing 3 of his strategic triads regarding a 4C class ballistic submarines to build 400 ICBMs, and also updating Tu-160 blackjack bombers modernization, replacing a lot of the old systems that the Russian military would have preferred to retire early had it been able to pay market pay. The China scenario. Their internal link is from 2016 is about maritime Aegis. No reason to break this now. Some other guy in 16 China Japan has deployed 2 BMD system ground-based Patriot in the maritime Aegis alteration. The Aegis BMD system is offensive potential allows it to target satellites, converting Aegis into a defensive BMD system to offensive aid. SAS system requires additional action alteration. SM-3 interceptor module thoughtful deployment of agents to perceive Japan as abandoning the peaceful way. In 2013, China can't engage in a fast breakout. There are too many barriers. They're author Logan. In 17, China's nuclear forces and policies are constrained by the country's instinctive approach to nuclear weapons. Chinese leadership believes that nuclear returns is largely unaffected by size of their adversary's arsenal calls as minimum. We subject reprisal. The recent dialogue Chinese criticism is that China could readily threaten the United States with only one warhead that is softer political constraints. China could face several harder technical barriers. The country's current warhead designs are too powerful. China's weapons testing is not given an ideal basis for developing modern designs. Modern device. The North Korea advantage. No no-go advantage. The plan doesn't cause a boost phase fill-in, and the current systems are years away. Their author Lewis and Hopel. In 18, currently the only boost phase program is an unpredictable electronically driven laser high-altitude drone system based on many technical challenges. Even if they're overcome, will not be operational mid-2020s for many. Deployments of FM3 Block 2A interceptor will require quantitative limits on its deployment of the current political environment will rule out form of treaty imposing a limited recognition of the consequences of deployments might lead to some restraint to reduce the numbers of SM3 Block 2A interceptor will combine the limits on testing might reduce concerns. They can't solve moral causes that the best boost phase systems are designed to go on Asia systems done. In 19, all ASI systems deployed that to South Korea, Asia destroyed in Europe, ground base mid-course defense, Alaska and California, the NAVA's Asia's ballistic missile systems on the world's ocean, China and Russia grew. Alarm Lockheed is slated to deliver laser integration Asia systems by 2020 and early models showing the ability to shoot down drones, high energy, laser technology, bright capability to destroy boosting missiles.
Okay.
Or get boosting missiles.
Very good.
Yeah.
Size of the counterplans.
Conditional.
Net benefit to offsets is just internal. What's the net benefit to the conditions counterplan?
The net benefit to conditions is Jackson.
Both appeasement dissents.
Okay, why the China appeasement is said we're still appeasing China because we reduce arms sales?
No, the distinction is that the AF is a unilateral concession. The counterplan
Right,
would
but
require
I'm
a concession
confused,
from China.
very confused how it avoids China because it still makes a unilateral concession to China.
No, it's not.
It conditions Russia to do something, but that's still China doesn't have to do anything.
It doesn't. China. The second portion says that the People's Republic of
Okay,
China
okay,
agrees
that's
to
fair,
never
that's fair.
increase its nuclear
That's fair. I
stockpiles.
guess I'm still a little confused about that argument, but we'll
Well,
ask more
the
about
link
that
on the
later.
appeasement dissent is very clearly about unilateral
Okay,
concessions.
let's talk about the
pushing
links
for
on the
other
appeasement
concessions.
dissent being very clear. The Russia appeasement dissent, Dalder is about Ukraine.
Yes.
What's the link argument?
Yeah, the link argument is that it's similar to the China appeasement dissent, where it's a unilateral concession to what Aegis destroyers have been doing to check back against
Okay,
Russian
I'll ask a
arms.
different question. We maintain arms sales to Ukraine post-plan. Why does Russia expand?
The Dalder evidence, you're correct, talks about Ukraine, but it's part of a broader deterrence
It
strategy
doesn't speak
against
to a
Russia.
broader deterrence strategy or talk about
again,
unilateral concessions.
We'll read more evidence about specifically the Aegis destroyer missiles.
Okay, I'll look
This
forward
is
to
not
that. The T substantial argument, you haven't read a violation. What % of weapons is Japan?
We can insert a chart. It's not 2.7%, but then on top of that, the
Okay.
Aegis destroyer ballistic missiles is definitely not 2.7%.
Okay, we can debate about that. The EV also says that China was not substantial because it made up only 2.7% of, or sales to China were not substantial because they made up only 2.7% of China's imports. If we win that we're more than 2.7% of Japan's imports, do we win?
No,
or meet this
Portella's
interest?
talking about setting a baseline. We think that Portella says that less than 2.7% is definitely not substantial.
Where does it say 2.8% is substantial?
Again, like, our argument is that less than 2.7% definitely is substantial. It definitely is not substantial.
Right, but
Something that's 2.8% might be substantial.
why does that
might
mean that
not
like
be
Saudi's
substantial.
substantial? It never says that anything above 2.7%
Well, no,
is substantial, and I don't think they're trying
Again,
to
I
make
think,
a bright line argument.
I think a definition that defines what is not substantial is much better than a definition that defines what is substantial.
Really?
Because that gives us the violation. If we read
Okay.
substantial as like 25%,
Okay.
24% could also be
Okay, that's fair.
substantial. But
That's
you
fair.
know that 2.6% is not substantial.
Okay, that's fair. The offsets counterplan, the Eklinev seems to assume if we, I guess, have a larger economic offset strategy, why are sales to Japan
That's-
able to spill over to broader climate change
That's
efforts?
one of the internal links. So Eklund talks about two things. First is the financial offsets that they would gain from those agreements, but the second one, which is more significant, is global modeling. We think that sending a signal of offsetting our arms sales and substantially
what
funding the GCF.
countries are going to or what countries are going to model the U.S.? Russia is suddenly going to require that the funds that they're getting from arms sales
Well,
go towards solving global warming?
Yeah, the bottom of the Cohen evidence talks specifically about how post-Paris we lost a lot of our climate promotion legitimacy. We think that this would help go against that,
Okay.
which means that middle powers are more likely to check their renewables, etc.
Okay, I'm just sending it. Okay, it should be sent. The order is going to be the strategic stability advantage. Do you have the last name?
Oh, it's right.
The North Korea advantage. Thank you.
Yeah.
T, substantial. T, subsets. The climate offsets counterplan. The conditions counterplan. The Russia appeasement or deterrence dissent. And then the China deterrence or appeasement dissent. Okay. Is everybody good?
One sec, give me a sec.
Okay, that should be safe. Okay. Good? Okay. New sales of ages assured Japan capture strategic stability with Russia trying to view missile defenses, undermining secondary capabilities, ensures conventional nuclear modernization goes to LASA, Fetish taking low damage. The first argument is the Afghan plan prevents SF-3 interceptors from being on Aegis, assures systems that will be deliberately. The next argument, they didn't read the plan, it reduces all Aegis systems. SF-3 missiles are part of the deal. That's what I see with someone hippo piece of evidence. Say all causes, there are none, even of our evidence that Japan has other systems only. We have high level lines as to why that upsets Russia and China thinking upsetting Aegis assure systems because they're seen as being having the potential to be offensively upgraded in a pivotal expansion of USBMT strategy. They say Russia complains all the time. The Plopsky evidence that's about that, but our evidence makes a distinction for them. Says the offensive interceptors on Aegis are distinct from the other weapon systems that they have. Also, RDR has far more threatening detective capabilities that make China and Russia forget about the systems like that. Arguing about them not being reversible. Yes, it is. It says that a reduction of BMT is able to prevent Russia and China from modernizing in from seeing the modernization we're seeing in the status quo. Yes, arms racing is about Aegis. That was above the sail check. The sail check evidence they say internal link is about maritime Aegis. The plan resolves that because it reduces all Aegis, but sail check is about the procurement of advanced BMT that the plan is able to resolve. The Logan evidence concedes our argument says China is constrained in the status quo, but they have enough economic capabilities to invest in missile defense. It's a question of motive, which BMT eliminates the incentive for. North Korea. North Korean nuclear competence goes to nuclear dangers, proliferation capabilities, and rational guarantee escalation. That's a war in evidence. They say the planes as a consequence of space. Though when you see add-down evidence as a reduction of BMT is able to assuage Russia and China concerns, which also allows the military to invest in boost space defense deployments that will be implemented in places like South Korea, close proximity, which is able to effectively deter North Korea. The alternative causes were entered on the other advantage. T, substantial. We meet plain text and vacuum future cells are stopped in. We meet the FS2 bill in KD-19. The department is to approve the cell agents to Japan for 2 billion, and that's 5% of total FMS. T, Department 19. FMS manages the transfer of 40 billion per year in counter interpretation, 14 million for legal precision. DCMA 2. A substantial reduction of 14 million in FMS and for interpretation versus arbitrariness. Their definition about EU exports to China that is not contextual to U.S. policy. Historical baselines are bad because the F can only influence future cells, and our inter comes from a government agency has the intensified substantial reduction. That's a most legally precise. There's also the overlimiting just had 12 countries are enough because only the US, Saudi, Saudi, Taiwan, Israel can assisting debate for entire nexus. Defense versus functional limits. T-cells fill in circumvention condition counterfeit solving solution. Second percentage definitions are predictable. Sufficient versatile is 4. Legal rights type use of long percentage of quantified substantial between 40 to 50% of 50% base. Percentage might be arbitrary. Scholars and discriminate works in their space. Figures not clear. Does not be advisable to quantify the work substantial number. A percentage and reasonability. What's reasonable on that cross substance of education. Next, T. Pearson. We meet plain text and vacuum inwards between sweeping reduction of arms with qualities of agents assured to Japan and combat. Placement proves our absent. Designed to curtail weapon experts and counter restrictions are the legal mechanism for reductions 11 12. And the USA AEC has a goal of reducing by restriction which goods the techniques were to prefer versus legal precision. AEC is the gold standard. Second, predictability using exact words are defining inconsistently and interchangeably. And third, overlimiting just that their interpretation is function. The whole resolution doesn't allow for single country absence, single weapon systems, and cross-supply reasonability. The climate offsets kind of. First, permutation to the plane and offset all of the arms with cells with climate financing cells better than the counterpart. Second, permutation to the counterpart. Third, permutation to the plane and publicized and occurs that arm cells are offset with climate financing. Fourth, there's a double one. Either doesn't solve the app because cells continue or the counterpart disincentivizes cells, which means there's no net benefit in the permutation cells. Fifth, there is no evidence that says offsets from Japan Aegis assures alone is enough to make up a tiny fraction of overall US arms exports, which is nothing to close the climate financing gap. Six, the GCF is broken March 16. The challenges governance of the institutional capacity also include priorities both on negligence as well as corruption. Example can be seen that proliferate fraudulent companies that sell examples of the GCF has such as dismemberment and management funds out. Reset monitoring is limited to have small stuff. The GCF is accredited agencies who reckon about effective finances properly. GCF accredited AFC and the GCF is the largest financier of coal market, coal and seventh, climate financing is a model globally touches like China, India, massive all causes no impact for at all 17. The most likely levels of warming are unlikely to cause extreme low probability warming severe enough to pose an existential threat. Humanity is able to adapt enough in extreme scenarios that will take action when it's against it, impose large costs. But for those warning of 10, yourselves against the international community will face strong incentives to find other ways to reduce temperatures. Conditions. First, it says that false strategic stability interests ashore threats Russia and China's deterrence, solidifies mistrust, and creates highly escalatory dynamics that preclude effective negotiation. Second, doesn't solve North Korea. What I see says a unilateral reduction is precondition to ensure peace phase. Defenses are implemented successfully without Russia and China practice third permutation to move forth. Permutation of the campaigns must be textually kept functional committed is functional if it because it includes reduction of arms. And fifth, China says no. So in 13. U.S. have pressed China to become more transparent over abundance of details and enhance its ability to decapitate nuclear transparency. Seen as leaving China more vulnerable. Strategic stability and ambiguity is also seen as U.S. effort to maintain and augment its strategic advantage. Calls for strategic stability talks are read within China and other attacks in the U.S. attempts to maintain the average stability BMD are viewed within China as the U.S. attempts to draw into arms their systems are seen with China's underwriting stability. 6. Russia also says no. For 9. For Russians, the QP BMT is unacceptable. They do not want to show this of PQ ranges that will let America push off bigger choose Russian and want to return existing disarmament trees. The one to shoot up concern BMT technology that can run to the Russian nuclear deterrent. Obviously, condition not isolated use your time to in our approach, arguments, plans, real responsibilities, but solves our offensive condition categories are unpredictable. Could condition on any behavior change in any country still money without return of MTF can't leverage the solvency deficits. Dex edge clash and education also linked to the appeasement that cross expert. The Russian deterrence. First is the revisionism debate. First, it's irrelevant to the advantage strategic stability. The status quo precludes escalation to nuclear conflict. Aegis erodes deterrence, creates use it or lose it pressure. Second, its defensive rules and has been exploded power. All Olympics are responsive Western aggression, expansion level. That's a goal week's evidence structures how they play politics. Then, first piece of evidence is Naziosis says proves psychology, but that's substantial declining power argument for us. He has every incentive to project power. Others think he's rich out of fear. It's an empty deterrent threat. Also, since the invasion of Ukraine, that was an offensive action response to the U.S. and EU attempting to view Ukraine adverse Russia's overextended Western sphere influence. And the annexation was based on the ratification of Crimea because of close and the culture ties in. The one season internally to deter to the descent ages short roads effective deter to menace investing in missile probe causes Russia pro versus modernization offensive potential high interception speeds and advanced rate of Russian systems are less effective causes Russia to pro to compensate. Second, U.S. first strike capabilities Russia perceives ages as a segment of use missile defense incentivized aggression and against U.S. action and framing the issue for the link is not in the context of ages assured cross experiences about lethal winds Ukraine there should be sufficient to save off of Russia rise if their link argument is true but there's no link regardless of the plan it isn't a concession to Russia but instead restores mutual vulnerability. Second, stops the sale of 2 Aegis systems. That's an unsignificant signal we can result in withdrawal from Syria to grade 10-8. Putin was gifted 2-4 plus which tried to pull 1,000 troops into the state of victory for Russia. Trump pull U.S. out of the treaty. The treaty is turning against Russian aggression. Russia's involvement in Syria has been self-serving. U.S. leaving would give Russia more control in the region. Global leverage. China. The revisionism debate cross-applies are relevant to the advantage of China's defensive is complied with international law, focused on commerce and warfare, reforms, which means they stop short of offensive attacks while escalating against the containment miscom from BMD systems are the only scenario for where you can cross-apply the reasons that the what he sees internally to the dis that China proliferates because of modernization and U.S. first strike capabilities. There's also no link. The wing evidence is about a concession on Taiwan. That's not the F. Cross-apply the no link argument. This plan is not a concession because it only reduces 2 sales and it restores mutual vulnerability and refusing missile capabilities and versus mutual nuclear vulnerability with China preserves the deterrent role of U.S. nuclear forces. Nation Fighter 16. Damage limitation differs from method from deterrence to deterrence strategy influence behavior. Damage limitation attempts to turn China's nuclear forces to achieve limitation. The U.S. would employ BMD and Aegis is not key to deterrence. Interceptors are ineffective in Paris. This applies to boats. This has order 18. Attention of the SM-3 Block 2A fired from Aegis. The missile was designed intercept ballistic missile where the second successful test of past year practice apart from the missile to blame for the field test targeting fire control readers can cause the field test and SM-3 Block 2A test failed after mistakenly triggered the self-destruct mechanism. Yeah.
You have 20 seconds. You can finish the opposites part.
Yeah. The opposites kind of. Accreditation involved no assessment of the institutions. There's not a solvable conundrum to have mitigation and adaptation or defined measure monitor. The DCF does not have a definition. Mark that. Now it's definition.
Okay, you good?
Yep.
T, this counter-interpretation you read on T substantial is about like approving the 2 Aegis batteries. Is that the sale that the app reduces?
Are you talking about the counter-interpretation?
Yeah.
What do you mean reducing?
Well, you said like the AF is this like approved sale of $2.15 billion in like sales to Japan. Like I'm just clarifying, is that the AF?
Yes.
Okay. So then on case you said like no link out of all of our alt causes, we reduce those things too. But like the counter-creation and your no links to the disads is you reduce the Aegis batteries, and all of our alt causes are about the missiles that are being put on those Aegis destroyers.
Okay.
So how do you resolve that?
The plan text says that we reduce all Aegis BMD systems to Japan that includes all the alternative causes of the Aegis batteries,
But
because
it
those are the
doesn't-
systems
it
that are
doesn't.
literally
The
on
no
the
link-
Aegis BMC systems that the Afro
The
moves.
no link that you made on the Russia decide was like, no, we had 2 sails, and those 2 sails, in addition to those, were the interceptors and like all the other systems that we
Those-
put on the ships that are creating escalatory spirals.
The 2 sails of the Aegis ashore systems that the plane prevents, that is the sail that is happening in the status quo. The plane cancels that. That is where the SM-3 Block 2A interceptors are located on.
Yes, I get that it's where it's located on, but those interceptors are possibly sold post-plan.
They're
No.
part of the sale.
Okay,
What would we
the-
sell them that they can put them
The
on?
conditions counterplan, the Solomon evidence you read is from 2013. The unhighlighted portion says, quote, for decades, U.S. experts have applied the word the word referring to nuclear transparency as a means to pay greater engagement of China on a myriad subjects, leaving it overused, vague, and ultimately pejorative. This is just a disad to nuclear transparency. How is that the conditions counterplan?
I disagree with the characterization of the evidence. The argument that this evidence is making is that China will not agree to a QPQ or any kind of condition because they want a U.S. unilateral concession, because that's the only way that there is kind of transparency with what the United States
Okay,
is
so
doing.
I guess I'm confused with
Also-
both pieces of say no evidence. On the like 1AC like internal link level, you said like China and Russia care so much about these Aegis destroyers that it's causing them to modernize their nuclear capabilities, etc. And then on the counterplan, you're like, well, no, like only a unilateral concession would appease them. They aren't willing to make concessions for that. So like, do they care about Aegis destroyers?
Our evidence is really specific to a QPQ. The Russia evidence, it says, for Russians, a QPQ on BND is unacceptable. They don't want a rejiggering of existing disarmament treaties. They want to shoot down planes for
that
BND.
Stratfor evidence is from 2009, and it's referring to like treaties that were happening around them.
I'm
How does it
confused.
assume like new political dynamics?
I don't know what those new political dynamics are.
Well,
how
I think
they
there are
would,
pretty substantial ones in the last 10 years about how.
or
Putin-
how they would disprove the argument that either of these say no cards are attempting to say.
Okay, the China deterrence page, this Glazer and Feder evidence, or actually the Larder evidence, just says that like Aegis isn't being as effective as it could be. How does that take out the link?
Yeah, so I guess the link argument and like the block arguments that you're going to make are about the effectiveness of these weapons as a deterrent to China and Russia. They're not.
Okay. Start prep.
So which is they have like answers to specific pros and make like SES or turn off. And then like those are answers. Yeah, this. Wait, there's another card. There's another returns phase.
Okay, I don't have in the 1 year stuff. Is it in space?
It should be in the 1 year box. Oh, here. This one. It's in the trees. And it's good if they make ours like the actual PMDs being affected to turn. Just really making it first. Yeah, this adds up to toes.
Do you want to put both of these in there?
What's the bottom one?
What?
That's what I put toes.
Here's something. Which I threw you that. Actually, never mind.
$3.55. I'll say it. Okay, it should be set. Right, you need to stand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone good for an order?
Yep.
It's going to be climate offsets, the conditions kind of plan, the strategic stability advantage, and North Korea. Everyone good? The intrinsic permutation, the counterplan only changes the context of the app, reduces this, and effective check on artificial competition by getting a more limited net benefit. That means that they can't apply offset modifications to a contract beyond the ones the plan reduces. Any firm that mandates climate finance or offset outside of the contract of the app cancels its functionally intrinsic, which is a voting issue. It justifies utopian infinitization that turns out overall net benefit when being negative possible. And funding doesn't exist in a vacuum. Any specifications of intrinsic USA no day for a program to be funded congressional authorization by passing the president by signing bills like if an agency for other programs is funded without authorization is appropriate and cannot see annual appropriate funding today. Reputation using the counterplan as established. The counterplan does not reduce arms sales and relies on continuing on large transactions to adequately generate climate financing. Seven is a vote for advocacy skills. Applicants are shifting targets and they have to defend anything and changing the terms of the sales, not reduction. Supreme Court of 73 with the board reduced power converted religious on the distribution time of power is converted to change the term of the appropriation by reducing the amount of principal applied to condition of question that increase sales to expand the scope of GCF financing. That is the opposite of reduction. U.S. federal court appears 99 and reducing to diminish that amount. Like the number of reduced increase in the counterplan is model. Let's say that the next permutation doesn't solve any warming because it requires that the arm sales actually offset. They say it disincentivize sales. No, that by publicizing and encouraging to happen, it means Japan would have. They haven't read any evidence. Japan wouldn't go put that. Japan wouldn't request that financing to go for the GCF, which means it doesn't solve. They say it's a tiny fraction, but the counterplan is modeled U.S. offset nor should any national market. Johnnie 16 in restrictions of printable supply with the U.S. one of the largest. They should be held. They do ship the offset policy guys after that. The best they can be done in the U.S. exercise firm leadership. You should exercise. You should the U.S. defense firm to occupy offset share. Or make it given the U.S. really. They say the GCF is broken, but the GCFs have proven to be effective. We'll ensure that's tried here. That's the burden of Bondari. 18 evidence. Also, all this about internal corruption, but has no evidence that causes spillover effect. That means that the project doesn't work. It doesn't model answer that above all costs is sufficient to solve. My climate, the Green Climate Fund can also fund things like adaptation and mitigation, which is sufficient to prevent extinction. They say it doesn't cause extinction. Warming does cause extinction. 1, sea level rises more than 25 meters. 2, lethal temperatures rises beyond the threshold of human survivability. 3, biodiversity collapse. Keystone species die collapsing the ecosystem around continent. 4, weather change. So here, wildfires, heat waves, drought, and inundation increases. 5, agriculture collapse. Food production become unviable. Extreme weather. And then 6 is chronic water shortage. Population lose access to drinking water. And 7 is infrastructure collapse. Destruction of crucial infrastructure like healthcare and governmental structure make disease and research and offering rampant. That's all the spread evidence, and you should make them line by line each of them. Condition conflict. The counterplan tells you 100% in the affirmative. All they don't really have any game on the say no debate, and all other answers don't apply. They say they don't solve any advantages. Group the first two arguments. It does solve because it gets rid of those ages. It gets rid of the age system on, and then by conditioning it on US and Russia reducing its BMDs and China reducing its nuclear survivability. They would say yes, that's their own Lewis evidence, but I'll get to that later. Say permutation debug. The permutation is severed. The permutation is severed because it's intrinsic because it adds the portion of the counterplan and severs out of the possibility that both of them say no. They say the permutation, they say permutation to the counterplan. No, there's a possibility that they were implanted and done in the world. The counterplan is separate from certainty. They say China says no, but if they ask all anything, then they would have to say yes. According to them, the only reason they're building up is because they're scared of ages. If they're not scared, then obviously this deal would be super beneficial for them. Otherwise, Russia and China are being disingenuous and aren't actually worried about ages. The Solomon evidence is not about ages, which is on the case page. Reina emphasized is so important to be specific about. None of their evidence is in the context of if they are right that ages is the most important thing. That's the only thing they care about. And that is the only thing. Then of course they would make those concessions. They say Russia says no, but this evidence is from 2009. It's not about ages. It's story. Your own solvency advocate disagrees. They say conditionality. I'll do that here. The conditionality is good. One is argument innovation debaters are restricting counter laws and introduce new position by giving them a fallback option. 2 is next flex counters key to test the app from multiple angles. 3 is info processing creates a different type of critical thinking about interaction between flows. 4 is the ideological testing. Only counter laws simultaneous critical and policy evaluation. The plan which forces the actor to defend only their position. 5 is logic scroll. Is always an option. The judge shouldn't have to choose between 2 bad options. 6 is strategy inevitability. And 3 and 7 counter interpretation negative against 2 conditional rules. Reject the argument not the same conditions. Counterplan the counter interpretation negative against condition counterplans that are in 1AC evidence. That's good. 1 is rewards in-depth research and hyper-specific strategy over generics. 2 is app choice. They get to pick their 1AC evidence, so they should be prepared to debate and force to defend their plan text. 3 lit check abuse. Clearly a limited number of conditions that their 1AC authors propose. In general, condition counterplans are good as well. 1 is real world arms sales are made with conditions 90% of the time. Conditions counterplans are key to learning about those processes. 2 is critical thinking forces the app to come up with unilateral action key warrants. And 3 is next topics. The affluent conditions are key to checking advantage and add-on and non-proliferation. They say it doesn't lay links to the piece of no. It's about the concession. Roman emphasized that in cross-section of the 1 and C is about the concession, which the counterplan does not do because it makes China and Russia give something else. It gives something else in return for the plan. Stability. Extend the Lewis evidence. They have no evidence that they predict the actual interceptor missiles. It's not about the app. The app is about the systems that the missiles will be on, but they don't actually reduce the system as a separate sale. That was the Gady evidence. And 2, those are already deployed. The evidence says that there are 85 Asia ships in the status quo that have those missiles and will have those missiles, which means that if they are scared of those missiles, then it's not the entire advantage is not unique. And the evidence about SM-3 interceptors that go on the system, those interceptors are what piss off China and Russia, but they can't solve because we already have those ships in our Lewis and Hipple evidence evidence, which is their salty African, the vast majority of the internal link evidence is about SM-3 interceptors being what pushes China and Russia over the brink. Those are the missiles that they put on Aegis systems, not the systems themselves. The missiles definitely get deployed elsewhere and are being purchased all the time. NDP, 18 Aegis BMD ships battlefield SM-3 Block 1 and intercept Navy currently deploys SM-3 Block IB currently testing Block 8 or 82 for future deployment. All SM-3 variants, 5 from DLS cells on both Aegis purchases and Aegis ashore sites. Depending on the shooting contract of procurement, 52 SM-3 Block IB interceptor after successful second test of the Block 2A in December 2015. MDA contracted the purchase of the interceptor. The SM-3 Block 2A interceptors have already been sold to Japan in a separate package from Aegis Solar System. It was sold separately because those missiles also go to Aegis ships, which this plan doesn't, and they are already there in the status quo. You should hold the line and punch them for bad plan writing. That's the one is the data evidence, and more of those missiles are already out there in multiple separate deals. In 2019, the U.S. approved Japan request to purchase 72 SM-3 Block 2A missiles with a deal value around $925 billion. In April, the State Department included $1.2 billion sale of 56 SM-3 missiles, Block IB missiles to Japan. The U.S. also approved the sale of 4 SM-3 Block 2A missiles in January last year. Extend the Grunny evidence, yes, it is all caused. It's part of it. It's selectively cut to say that yes, Aegis might piss them off, but it continues to list a bunch of other things that will also piss them off. All causes their author, Tom 18, the U.S. is conducting research in conventional weapon megatronic hypersonic beat conventional prime global striking constructing the development of rocket guidance of ongoing guided Moscow and Beijing, where that's a will destroy nuclear forces down base components such that antennas are like relatively self-reliable, any satellite weapons can control and command and control just such and take multiple ill for stability to decide weapon prevent particularly dumbing challenges, but there's no obvious way forward an anti-satellite or even conventional cruise missiles. They extend Klosky evidence. They have no evidence about why THAAD being offensive is key. There's no distinction between the reaction to THAAD and reaction to Aegis, which proves that it's all rather extend of hyper evidence. Hyper evidence. They can't. Aegis have been Russia has been modernizing for years. They have a goal to modernize 70% of the military by 2020. That's not change what it's in China. It's about maritime disputes. There's some like evidence. They say the plan was all, but the thumper. The evidence is from 2016, which means that Aegis has already been appointing. Should have thought. Okay. This entire advantage doesn't make sense. They can't be out deploying boost phase interceptors. There's no reason getting rid of block 2A interceptors is called a shift to boost phase. And boost phase extend there's 2 takeouts of the 2AC does not answer. 1, a bunch of ABM systems already should have done because they pissed them off. And 2, it also says that boost defense goes on the Aegis system, which means that the only way to solve boost phase is to deploy the Aegis, because that is the mechanism for how they go on. They extend the Lewis evidence that only answers that the 1AC done evidence, but there's no evidence for how the plan is reverse causal would cause that boost phase to happen. They extend the co-op evidence is bad. 1, it's about the Middle East and Middle East because of Aegis ashore in Romania, and 2, it's about Aegis ships, not Aegis ashore. It's selectively highlighted around that proves that it should have already triggered the link because places in Romania already have Aegis ships and Aegis shore, which have the capability to send those strikes, which should have already pissed off Russia.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
First, the climate offsets counterplan, the Shawnee piece of evidence that you read that says U.S. Climate financing gets modeled. It says that the U.S., quote, must exercise leadership and is extremely suggestive. Where does this make a modeling claim?
The evidence is talking about why the U.S. should lead an offset policy and concludes that in order to
what countries model the U.S. and where does the evidence say that those countries
It's
would?
about the defense contractor. We don't have obviously not one example of a specific country that model, but we think that by publicizing that will cause companies and countries to request those offsets to be direct toward climate change.
Okay, so yeah, but what countries post offsetting with Japan would also offset arms sales?
I mean, any country. Saudi Arabia, any country we sell arms to, Saudi Arabia, Ukraine.
Okay, but your doesn't isolate any, that's fine. The chart that you inserted about this climate financing proven to be effective, I guess, why doesn't it not just prove that the status quo is effective?
The argument is that GCF doesn't have enough funding in the status quo.
I know, but the chart that you insert talks about the success of it.
Right, it's been successful in the status quo. Our argument is that A, the modeling, and B, that the amount
where do you have any uniqueness claim that there is not enough funding?
Well, you haven't made that argument.
The GCF talks about that. That's fine. The conditions counterclaim. Your answers to China says yes is just that it's beneficial for them and it's in about the 1AC. But have you read any of that they'll explicitly come to the negotiating table and agree to the QPQ, which is what the counterclaim does?
Look, our argument on the say no is that if you're right that Aegis is so important in China, then they wouldn't make a concession because they're so afraid of it. If we're wrong about that, then it proves that China is disingenuous and doesn't really care about it that much because they wouldn't stop expanding their nuclear program in order to stop it.
Okay.
If you're right that they're only expanding.
Yeah, but RM is hyper specific to negotiations, which is what the counterclaim does, and it says those fail because they need unilateral concessions from the U.S.
Which piece of evidence?
The internal link to the
But-
app. And the two
Our,
cards that said China and Russia says no, it's about U.S.
well, the one
conceding.
the evidence for the 1AC counterplan is from your 1AC evidence and concludes that that would be the best
Yeah,
way to enforce
But
the app.
never says that Russia or China would say no, yes to that. That's fine. The no-code advantage, you make an argument towards the end about boost phase going on Aegis. I guess I'm confused about, first, what evidence you have that says that, because there are two different parts of like missile defense systems, but also the implication for that.
Yeah, the re-highlighting of the done evidence says that boost phase defense goes on those Aegis systems. So like the actual missiles themselves.
What re-highlighting are you talking about?
The
Because
one-
boost phase defense is about
The
the
one in-
initial part of the interception, whereas Aegis is like a terminal part of it.
Yeah, the 1AC done evidence.
Can you point to me a line that says that?
Yeah, and as these systems deployed, THAAD to South Korea, Aegis to shore to Europe, ground-based Nile course to Alaska, the Navy's Aegis ballistic missile.
That's not the argument, but
Okay, let's see. Okay, should be some. It's the conditions counterplan, the Russia dissent, and the China dissent. Okay. Anyone not good? Give me a sec. Cool.
The permutation severs as a body issue resolve means firm and purpose or intent means of permutation severs RHWW. A dictionary no date for purpose or intent determined should does not refer to future action words and phrases. And 5 should not be construed as having reference to a future act. Should require certainty words and phrases. And 5 should imply obligation. Russia does it. Concede Russia's defensive realist, which means that they wouldn't say no to the counterplan. Concede that there's no link, doesn't take out the other dissent, and the serious number doesn't apply to China. No offense, China. China's expansionist in the status quo, only maintaining the current hardline strategy can rein ambition in. The plan is a massive concession that greenlights Chinese aggression and empowers nationalists outweigh its own magnitude because it spirals into a great power war that causes extinction. That's the Cohen evidence, and on time frame, signal of the planned concession is sent before Aegis destroyers are inoperable. Also turns the case versus Russia. Chinese expansionism would mean that they also have to continue to develop threatening capabilities to deter against China. Now, 1EC Frederick says that it's just against, quote, strategic adversaries. Second is Chinese modernization. The link alone speeds up that modernization because they know that the U.S. won't intervene in their modernization process, and now they have other territorial ambitions to protect. Third is North Korea makes cooperation impossible in a multipolar order where the U.S. can lead negotiations. They don't have evidence on it. The revisionism debate, yes, takes out the internal links to the app because proves that China will continue to nuclearize, but their evidence is really bad. China's expansion is first is that it appears to prove that China takes aggressive action that attempts to challenge U.S. hegemony. First is territorial expansion. China's aggressive and illegal island building and border disputes over India and the Philippines. Second is economy manipulation. China does IP theft, currency manipulation, expanded economic coercion through OBOR. 3 is cyber attacks. China attempted election hacking and participated in Sony hacking. Fourth is that China's revisionist litany of examples of aggressive behavior. Chang in 19, China interfering in American vessels, global economies, blinded American pilots, injured American diplomats, Chinese officers, attacks on the U.S. Navy, attacking democracy, appropriation to interfere in the 2020 elections, giving safe haven to no-code. China is imprisoned American legal residents. China, world's most master proliferator of nuclear IDR. Pakistan sent nuclear tech to the Middle East and North Africa to deliver materials to no-code G, calling question legitimacy of the international system. 5, China's revisionist cite statements from Chinese officials or Chinese newspapers, which is the best way to evaluate a country's intentions out. And 18, China expressed on these things because the rules and norms created American predominance. Chinese blame the U.S. for permutations, disorder, dysfunction. China did deal with minimalist international order. China used sovereignty principle to shield to ward off external criticism. The U.S. share of the global world GDP come down while China's shares increase. Western countries continue domination. China increasing its own internal international financial organizations. Sorry, my computer is not stable. Yeah. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm still on the right. Okay, I'm starting at China created. Good. China creating its own international financial organization. China pushing internationalization RMB to break U.S. dollar dominance. Serious geopolitical rivalry. 6 is that China is revisionist, rising power through territory and economic modernization. 2018, the rise of China can produce China's hegemonic cooperation and complete catch-ups are inherently complicated. The rise of new great power can produce significant stability in the United States, and Beijing has adopted increasingly aggressive foreign policy. China that and about territorial issues seasons that CS and increasingly considers severe threat. China's intrude islands to seek de facto control of military can be read as sign of dissatisfaction with existing order. Beijing invested in a new naval vessel, submarine, and aircraft carriers, major sea lands, will crucial lifeline, energy, raw materials, essential goods should be China being involved in a major military conflict, market military conflict. The only card they've read is Jaleel. They makes 2 warrants. First is territorial disputes. They aren't trying to resolve all territorial disputes proven by the Ryukyu Islands and Okinawa. They only back down on Indian territory because of the RIC agreement. Second is the institutions warrant. They're only complying with institutions to take over U.S. responsibilities and change international norms to pursue global hegemony. They say no link about Taiwan. I'll do the link debate here. There's a concession link. China is testing the American containment strategy, which is strong now, but the U.S. folding on its supportive allies and checking against Chinese expansionism signals that they can expand elsewhere. That's all the Wang link. Second is that Asia's ashore is integral to containing China. Pugliese and Muscle. And 18, the new defense outlook underwrites China Japan's commitment specifically in response to China's military expansion defense program constituted Japan Southeast different perimeters countering China, including any inter-province attempting counter ships can be found in Asia's ashore ballistic interference and a missile device. Even if it's not, perception matters much more. Cooperation triggers huge nationalist backlash, which derails G legitimacy swaying. And 15, heightened nationalism accentuated self-righteous assertiveness. Chinese believe that Beijing's past weakness and the need to cooperate with the U.S. have been made to accommodate and deal with national interest from Taiwan to surveillance along the Chinese coast and G's foreign policy stresses resolute managing territorial and sovereignty issues. Such trends would eventually weaken support for cooperative foreign policy. Leaders rely legitimacy on nationalism. The policies are often capitalized on resentment toward the arrogant West. The Chinese regime is successfully vulnerable to ultra-nationalist pressures. There's also a Japan link. The plan is a form of weakness signaling to allies that the U.S. won't intervene in Chinese acts of aggression. Chen in 17, the U.S. reputation could be a stake walking away woods in a troubling signal to U.S. allies in East Asia. U.S. concession that Washington unlikely to challenge the PRC and other issues in the region. The counterplan does not link because it is a QPQ, which means that it's not perceived as unilateral withdrawal. They said the Glacier and Federer evidence first is that it's not responsive to our scenario, which is expansion in other regions, not based on Chinese military modernization, which we also turn. Second is that they don't access the BMD offense because they don't change China's propensity to access those kinds of weapons. Their own evidence is too strong for that. They say Asia's key to deterrence. First, not ineffective. Their Lancer evidence is about 1 missile test failure in Hawaii, which is obviously not all of empirics. I'll read one more card. States are guided by offensive realism. Best historical evidence free policy guided by accommodation will fail. Wang. And 18 defensive realism to guide how the world will extend how the world actually works and not how much explanatory power. Offensive realism has a danger of dominating China and Taiwan. These rupture international systems guide sending lead power majors to maximize relative power until they have dominated defensive realism offers little guidance because inherently difficult both to distinguish defense from offense to operationalize the concepts.
Okay, we have 10 minutes.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay, and then just conditions.
1
sitting on a dock right now. Should be set. Is everyone good for an order? First is the strategic stability advantage, then North Korea advantage, then the conditions counter plan, the offsets counter plan, deterrence. Do you have that, Jackson? Do you want me to give it one more time?
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. The strategic stability advantage, North Korea, the conditions counter plan, the offsets counter plan, and then the China deterrence design.
Okay. Oh, fine, I just lost my flow.
Okay, everyone good? Two scenarios. First, arming Japan with Aegis Sword, collapsing strategic stability with Russian forces and fundamental resources, into strategic capabilities and nuclearized causes global war that's efficient. Kevin second, solves Chinese nuclear development. They're developing new capabilities to counter Aegis escalates to nuclear war. That's a Logan piece of evidence. All of their arguments are centered around our plan being bad, but you drop the gist about Aegis, which means that we access all their arguments about future ship developments, but our makes a comparative claim that says that new Aegis Ashore developments that are in the pipeline are make China and Russia much more upset because of the offensive capabilities that they can be re-altered to adapt to. But we solve SM-3 missiles. We don't put them on Aegis Ashore, the world of their plan, which our evidence says is the problem, making Russia and China so upset. First, ships are not offensive. Our policy makes a key distinction, says that new Aegis Ashore capabilities have a greater potential to be made more offensively. They don't specify the other things that upset them, which means the burden is on them, but THAAD doesn't. Our M also makes a comparative claim that says THAAD can't be upgraded in the ways in which Russia and China fear the U.S. is being able to strike down their ballistic missiles. We saw the Russia scenario in a world where they don't have second strike capabilities. That means that new modernization is inevitable. Same thing with China, which they haven't really extrapolated on. The North Korea advantage. This advantage might not be great, but their answer is just completely missed about North Korean nuclear development escalates to the war. Nuclear competence first strike capabilities security conflict escalates absent limitations. That's a word and piece of evidence. Yes, there is a link or does evidence as a concession on Aegis Ashore is key because the U.S. so far thinks we don't need boost phase defenses, and since we have Aegis, but our SSS insufficient, and boost phase is sufficient to solve because it intercepts the missiles in the boost phase thanks to new launchers. It's not deployed on Aegis. Our SSS will be more likely to be put in South Korea. Romania and Poland are not responsive to this advantage. But they also don't upset Russia as much as they cross-apply this to the other advantage because we ended the phase 4 parts to those interceptors which would make them upgradable, which our SSS is what upsets them so much. The conditions counterplay. I was sitting condo with the topic because it didn't answer the counter which solves all their offense battles. Avoiding issue, reject the team for encourage unproductive argument culture, religious and terrible counterplays, hurting education, kills advocacy skills by defeating teams from reading offense, siblings, and proliferating arguments without repercussion, keeping different ideological positions to the left for contradiction. Degrad doesn't outweigh because our distance on the topic and air because the one air time trade-off and disposals solves our offense allows them to experiment with an infinite number of positions or 50 card speeches, but prevents contradictions and gives the app strategic choices. I'm extending permutation due to the counterplay. I'm not going for theory, but they made no argument that controls competition means just because the counterplay is theoretically legitimate, it doesn't mean it's competitive, but they messed up because they didn't explain why their model of competition is better. Permutation due to the counterplay itself functionally or textually competitive because it results in a reduction of sales. Sexual and functional competition are key, prevents process failures, armor recycling, hamstring, and offensive condition is plain and plus. It's not severance, certainty, and immediacy are mandated to the plan. They're just assumptions of normal means. And resolve means to express by Webster's idea to express a resolution for voting doesn't require certainty. Webster's and I resolve console deliberate or immediacy PD and I determine after reflection to the lesser LS for doesn't mean certainty. LS for exception 0. Limiting policies are for terms of indication of urgency. Shall action must be all cases policies containing should indicate exceptions are less exceptions are at least binding. But I'm also going to say no because they have card 0 that Russia or China agrees to the specific mandates of the counterplan. Our evidence says we could condition, but never says they would agree. The Russians want to see evidence and cutting off their author says a unilateral concession is key, and the Tracy Sheffer evidence the most contextual to Russia, and they says they won't agree on a QBK for BNB for negotiation to be successful. The U.S. has to make unilateral concessions, which only happens in the world of the permutation because they don't trust the U.S. The same goes for China, and the Twin T Salmon evidence is the most contextual to the counterplan. The recutting also is just about Russia, so they have no say yes argument for China. The offsets counterplan. fact that they have no warming turns war argument, but war makes warming much worse because it releases in the atmosphere and devastates the environment. Funds from Japan are not also all the intrinsic permutations and severance permutations are reason to reject the argument on the team because it has a competition, but they don't solve warming. Funds from Japan are not enough to solve all of warming. They also don't solve our future selves because countries won't agree to any war contracts, and the DCF feels it has conducted fraudulent financing and has no enforcement mechanism. The counterplay doesn't revitalize the institutional capacity and capabilities of the agency, which means it will never feel that's a 2 which evidence and offsets will be targeted outcomes for policy. In 14th international describing how career will be funded by defense agency, the only for those introduction and acquisition purchase for the best way. Governments are impatient for results when offices are mandated for results in the planet asymmetry is very hard to target, but warming doesn't cause extinction. 12 degrees Celsius is the extinction point, which while the probability of eventual warming of 6 degrees is 10% and 10 degrees is 3%. That's a far cry piece of evidence. There are things like forest fires don't result in extinction, so we don't have to answer every single one because only our results our answers the extinction claim. At the top of the China dissent, they dropped all the ways the afterwards effective deterrence, even if deterrence is good in the abstract, it just causes unique escalation. They have no external impact. There's 3 lines of the code evidence highlighted it, and it doesn't isolate and resulting in nuclear war. No time frame differentiation. Now, like explained on the deterrence stuff, but doesn't turn case. Russia will not latch on because they'll maintain second strike capabilities in the world. Yeah, it doesn't turn North Korea because our evidence is about negotiations, but who's face stopping them from deploying systems in the first place. But China's not revisionist. They have no interest in bending the international order, and they've integrated themselves into informing states regional. That's total evidence, and even if we're losing revisionism, Asia's ashore offsets the balance of strategically, which is their only scenario for Chinese modernization. They say things like island building and territorial expansion, but that was defense original evidence is most contextual and identifies Chinese actions were in response to the US sending planes and ships into disputed areas to keep access to shipping routes. Those military exercises anger China, which prompted them to reciprocate. They say internal documents, but no, those internal documents say they want a peaceful rise or taking evidence from a national interest report. Prefer our evidence, but there's absolutely no link. None of their evidence is contextual to the efforts. Modernization new cells of Asia to Japan can be offensively upgraded. They have higher interception speed and advanced radars, causes China and Russia to think their systems are not as effective, and ensures conventional modernization, which answers all of their warrants. All of their evidence is tagged about Japan is about Taiwan, which is super embarrassing. They have no about Japan, and yeah, and they have no evidence that Aegis is effective to turn China. But that was mostly answered about. They have no evidence, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on this.
I think 352. counterplan. Climate offsets. Appeasement. Stability. And I'm good. Cool. Conditionality is good. It's in next. They inevitably have a strategic advantage. They have infinite prep and must only focus on defending the plan, which means they have extended knowledge of plan mechanism advantages. And they can't match that standard of advocacy, which means they're into-excuse the debate towards the structural factors means it's already hard to be negative. 1, there's no generic counterplan. 2, literature is biased towards the 3, the only real theory violation is not viable to many judges. 4, the aspects first and last and benefits from recency bias. Next likes outweighs. 1 is an independent impact. The primary role of the judges is to ensure a fair debate. That's a prerequisite to any other evaluation of the round. 2, towards education and structural skew towards one side disincentivizes negative. And the 3, which further advocacy skills and ideological factors because we never had any incentive to do that in the first place. They conceded that argument innovation. They were not conditionality. There's no research innovation. People stick to the one generic counterplan, which is terrible for conditionality. We also concede reasonability from the T debate. We never answered that, so that's how you should evaluate competing models of theory, which means that none of it applies to dispositionality. It's basically just unconditionality. Unconditionality because as a firm, we can sit the team with one counterplan, which means that there's no functional difference or benefit for any firm dispositionality. The permutation is severance. 1, they still must agree to the plan. A small chance that they don't mean they compete. If not, they don't solve and you vote negative on presumption. 2 is severance immediately. The plan cuts off sales while the counterplan makes an offer and they may or may not change sales. Severance is a voting issue for fairness. Having the moving target is able to shift out a potential offer done. Other evidence applies because it's not in the context. The possibility of the plan not being done means that it's still severance. Permutation due to the counterplan. They have to win that all of the words are uncertain, but we only have to win that one is certain. First resolve means determine that the Western evidence piece of evidence agrees that when the untitled parts is determined that the NBW dictionary. Second, does require certainty. The counterplan compete by using odd, but they have not counter-defined. And the words and phrases refers to judicial and statutory use of the term. Theirs is just common use. And third, it should require immediacy. Their evidence isn't conclusive, but ours is. It says future action is definitely excluded in it. Either way, it means that the conditions counterplan is good. Our net benefit is good for education. The say no debate, they have not been able to answer the double bind at the top of the say no. If they say no, then it means that obviously China and Russia do not care that much about the aegis system because if they are willing to say no, they value their own modernization and build up over that aegis system. If they are right, if they care so much about that aegis system, then China would, if they care so much, then they would obviously say no because that's an easy trade for them, which means even if they read evidence on the question, none of it's applicable because it's not in the context of aegis. And it doesn't say the Solomon evidence or the other evidence from 2009 is not in the context. Which means even if it don't have any evidence, it doesn't matter because if you believe that they say no, then there's no reason that the facts of the effort true. Okay. I can see that it doesn't solve. We're going to go for it. Appeasement. Greenlighting Chinese expansion is what causes the aggression and miscalculation. That's why I the Great Power War. That caused the extinction. That I wasn't having because it immediately empowers China to push territorial expansion, which is how Roman characterized it. And the one that they haven't answered that turns their impact and makes Chinese build up inevitable and causes Russia to be fearful of Chinese adversary. None of their evidence in context of Russia being afraid of the U.S. in context of Russia being afraid of some adversary. China would be that adversary to be the turn out of Russia. They say appeasement. Yes, they would escalate. No, they respond to the code evidence too late. It said that China would start to cross the U.S. red line, which would cause that retaliation. They say there's no return, yes, but it's not about Russian LASA. It's about the threat they feel. It's about the threat they feel from China. China's not revisionist. We are just out-carding them on this debate. You should not let the 2AR get away with this. It also frames most of your battle on the revisionism debate. The revisionism frames most of your battle because it means only we have a correct reading of China, which means that they have no way to solve the build-up because China will keep building up. In the status quo, we have given examples. They haven't answered things like economy and trying to bind countries to them in other parts of the world, like cyber attacks on some in the United States that are obviously not territorial expansions. Also, the Cheng evidence, I'm not going to go through it because it has a lot of great examples. There's a laundry list of reasons and warrants and examples that why of examples that China has done bad things in the status quo that are not merely territorial. The Choi evidence also talks about whether there's a structural factor, i.e. the rising power challenging a dominant power. That means that rise that challenge is inevitable. They say there's no link. It's not about the gap, but yes, they haven't answered any link in the 1AR. Gregory said no link, but didn't answer any of the evidence. The Pugliese evidence that Roman read in the 1AR is specific to Asia and says it's key to deterring Russia to continue China in the 1AR. Even if that's not true, it doesn't matter because they can see the perception link. It's about a perception of U.S. containing Taiwan, and also the concession link. The plan is perceived as a concession, which hugely matters because it also means the counterplan cannot link to the net benefit because the counterplan is not a concession, while the view of the concession is specifically what causes it. Stability. This debate is confusing, but you should go back and read the evidence. We'll hang our hat on one piece of evidence. It's the NVE evidence that says it doesn't change. They obviously don't change the SM-3 missile because that's not part of the Aegis system. The NVD evidence I read in the 2 and C says that the missiles is a separate deal that was sold, that has already been sold. If that is true, it means that they are already sold two ships which can use them offensively. The SM-3 have already been sold, which means they already have that offensive capacity in the ships. North Korea. The Dunn evidence says that it means that they can't solve any of their advantages because the Aegis is key. The Aegis is key to boost defense. They put the boost defense on the Aegis systems, which means that if they take away Aegis, they have no way to counter that boost defense. That's done.
Okay. 5. Yes, I have it. Patch my own. Starting. Okay. Yeah, just it's right there. Yeah. And it's like maybe yeah. nuclear advantage. Strategic stability. The conditions counterplan. And then the deterrence is add. Okay. Is everybody good? North Korea war always in turns it is that they have quite literally dropped this advantage, which means your ballot should easily read that North Korean war always because it goes due to the modernization of the nuclear arsenal and the development of the first strike capabilities increases the propensity for Moscow can use it or lose it pressures if there's any risk that the counterplan isn't competitive. Russia and China would say new to the condition. Both have a basically unmitigated advantage outweighing the dissent with links about sales to Taiwan. Not the only two in our argument is incoherent. It says they say that boost phase goes on Aegis first. This has absolutely no implications for the advantage, but second, it's factually incorrect. Our evidence says that those are two distinct systems. Boost phase defense systems intercepted in the beginning stages of the missile interception, whereas Aegis ashore are in the terminal part. They're just factually incorrect about this argument, but regardless, that has no implications. The reduction of the Aegis is sufficiently able to allow for the implementation of boost phase deployment, which deters North Korea. Strategic stability. I'm just gonna go for the China scenario. Army Japan prompts quick China modernization goes there's a unique conversation of the cell just to show that's a breaking point for strategic stability because systems can be both offensively upgraded and integrated with U.S. military personnel forces. Trying to increase conventional nuclear modernization ensures deterrence with the U.S. guaranteeing the use of nuclear weapons and miscalculation. It outweighs their impact in session. The conflict only happens absent strategic stability means we control their deterrence impact because China's only aggressive in a world where the U.S. has a built-in mutual vulnerability. The plan restores that which resolves any incentive for conflict. The only two in our argument is that we don't resolve the SM-3 interceptor. This argument doesn't make any sense. The only way that they can be deployed the only way that the interceptors can be deployed in Japan is on Aegis, which is what the plan gets rid of. Their evidence says that there are sales of those, but no evidence that the interceptors alone provoke Russia and China retaliation. They go on the systems, which is what the plan is able to resolve. The conditions got that. I'm just starting with the permutation. Our interpretation is that counterplans must be functionally and textually competitive. The counterplan is not functionally competitive because it results in a reduction of arms. That's the only fair interpretation because the first is about should or resolve meaning immediate and certain legitimized control delay. The condition counterplans preventing us from winning the effort makes it impossible to generate offense. We couldn't read. They conceded this. They conceded this one argument, but the permutation to the counterplan is the way the plan can be done because the counterplan is plus because it specifies an additional process by which arms sales to Japan can be reduced. This does not sever immediacy or certainty because the counterplan is so certain just because it just changes what the certainty is set to. Worst case scenario will win a definition to prove our argument framing issue winning only one and then disproves a claim because being almost certain still proves uncertainty. Hence enough leeway to justify permutation. Result means to express my form, but it does require certainty or immediacy. That's what Webster's and PT evidence error office in the context of resolution policy making doesn't guarantee competition allows for exceptions and isn't binding. That's a CR evidence error because our evidence is contextual to policy making and draws a clear bright line. The tuner made a new argument about the counterplan says also it's competitive. I makes it textually different, not competitive. Reject this new argument fit in the block. They say the counterplan is good for education. Should it be rejected? There was also a new word for the counterplan to end cancer would be good for education, but isn't competitive. Should be excluded from the debate. Also extend the say no argument. They criteria that either China would say yes to the counterplan that Lewis and Hibble record is only about Russia, but also just as a word condition, not that Russia would actually accept the plan in exchange for reducing their nuclear stockpiles. Every other card in the 1EC2EC evidence specific to QPQ says that they expect the U.S. to make a concession. First, they said that there's a double blind, so this takes out the F. Absolutely not. Russia and China do care about Aegis ashore systems, but there's a distinction between they wouldn't just reduce their nuclear stockpiles without the U.S. making a concession first. The impact overview at the top is involvement in the context of the dissent. When we have internally turned the dissent courage and deter strategies to replicate their impact while reducing BMT and appeasing China is effective at stopping Russia, limiting incentives to go to war. The time frame argument that they make at the top, they have card zero that China pounces immediately after the U.S. stops at still 2 Asia 7 with systems inside the plan reduction of arms has an immediate perceptual signal that stops China's modernization incentives. There are no turns case argument. Only the plan is able to resolve China China modernization. They have no scenario for expansion, but regardless, if we win our internal scenario, the ages of roads affected deterrents to disprove every single one of the remaining constructions because the only scenario for confidence is the sale of Dave's PMT. Regardless, the money sees massively turn that they can see, they haven't answered any of the specific reasons that ages erodes deterrents versus modernization. The intercepts on the ages can be offensively upgraded, which means China think their systems are less effective and causes them to proliferate and expand to compensate for perceived weakness. Also, U.S. first-strike capabilities. China perceives ages as U.S. extending their missile defense system because that incentivizes aggression against U.S. because they fear of first-strike capabilities. The revisionism debate. China is a defensive realist. There are few top-level wars out there. Evidence has to answer. China has been integrating themselves in economic works, but haven't used their strength to influence others. They haven't imposed political or economic systems on neighbors, which shows the only tuner example coming out of the tuner, the expansion in the STS that was in their evidence was defensive. The Julio evidence is the most contextual identify China's actions has been in response to the U.S. sending planes and the state planes and ships that disputed or those military exercises anger China prompted them to reciprocate the link debate. The Plugies evidence, which is the only evidence in the context of Aegis, does not make an argument for the message. Japan will deploy Aegis, but does not connect that deployment to an effective deterrent that stays off China expansionism. The perception link is internally turned by our modernization arguments, but the tuner said, quote, containing Taiwan is the perception link. That's obviously not the app. Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Oops, I accidentally sent the open source doc in the email chain for some reason. I don't know why I did that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what is in here.
resolved that the counterplan didn't compete, and then kicked that. From there, what I think is a largely unmitigated North Korea advantage outweighs the China DA. So the counterplan competition question, these types of competition debates are kind of difficult for me because the 2NR is always kind of like threading this line between both the claim that any risk of uncertainty makes the counterplan competitive, like that's the core competition claim, and then when you make say yes arguments, it's like there's phrases like there's no risk of uncertainty, this is a really easy trade for China and Russia, it's in 1AC evidence, and like that stuff kind of, always to me sort of bolsters the AF's competition argument. I'm sort of more or less in the camp that there needs to be sort of like a theoretical push, a dropped definition, or a competition argument that involves words that aren't in every resolution to make these kinds of counterplans competitive. I thought that a potential out, I think you kind of let the AF get away with making the question of theory and competition like totally separate things, when I think that, the neg always wants to blur the line a little bit in these debates. So I thought like a potential 2NR pivot would have been to cross-apply all these 2NC arguments about how conditions counterplans are like a really important part of the literature. They make the AF do more critical thinking, make them think harder about what they put in their plan and in the 2AC and in their like 1AC cards. And so if you like had that business, then that's like a literature distortion net benefit to all of your definitions, which makes this debate a whole lot harder to kind of wade through. And granted, like the 2NR does say the words, the conditions counterplan is good for fairness in education, which was like, the like tagline of theory, but I think you have to unpack that a little bit more and tell me why it matters for the per and do the counterplan debate to make that something that I can really vote on. As is, there's an AF argument that your standard of competition makes other undesirable counterplans like consult and delay competitive. They have, evidence that's responsive to all the definitions, so while sure, like, you only need to win one to win, I don't think you won one. As far as DA versus case goes, I think the risk of advantage one is, like, basically zero. Like, the fact that there are SM-3 interceptors deployed on naval vessels, I think makes modernization, like, largely inevitable. The offensive-defensive distinction you're making, I didn't really get, because the EVSET refers to the capacity to alter an SM-3 interceptor into an anti-satellite weapon, which you can do if the interceptor's on a destroyer. And so I think you want to explore like a different explanation for how you get out of the naval vessels alt cause. Like, I've seen evidence that make the distinction that's like ships are rotating, so they're not a permanent source of presence. Like, maybe that's the reason why Russia and China don't think that they're like super important, whereas the like land-based systems are always there. I don't know. I think that weirdly, like, the uniqueness part of this advantage kind of has some DA implications. Like, if Russia and China modernization is inevitable, that's pretty bad for deterrence. So I think you want to kind of couple this with some sort of like SQUO good for deterrence style arguments when you're going for that position. However, North Korea becomes a totally external thing because they're explaining their internal link as basically, funding trade-off. Like, if we don't do Aegis Ashore, we'll have like more money, investment time. There's like more political will to invest in boost phase, which, by the way, is a little bit ridiculous because like there's no way the money that we invest in these like 2 Aegis Ashore systems is enough to fund boost phase. And I think my biggest recommendation for how you deploy this negative strategy is to have some more evidence about boost phase missile defense. The cards that, we don't have it now, it'll take forever to develop, it'll be super expensive. You have to put boost phase systems super close to launch sites because our intercepting missiles are a whole lot slower than offensive missiles. Those cards are all good, they're all around, and I think if you had some of that bit, then just like DA case would have been a really good 2NR in this debate, because I think like the 2NC is doing a phenomenal job of reducing the risk of advantage 1. But just like a little bit more on advantage 2, I think would put you in a really good spot. The done evidence does not say you put boost phase interceptors on Aegis systems. That's not really technologically how boost phase has been proposed. There are a few pieces of defense on the DA that bring the risk of it below the risk of advantage 1. First is, I don't think that the alt causes means they don't win like an offensive link turn, but I still think that the uniqueness part of the link turn matters, which is the fact that Russia and China are modernizing is really bad for the deterrence relationship because it creates a bunch of misperceptions and strategic instability. Second, kind of a risk that their stuff is that Chinese expansionism is reactionary to the United States and that they might be defensive realist means the unique implication of the plan might not be to, do more expansionism, but might be to do more cooperation. The third argument, which, I don't think their debating got them a lot out of, but just like Aegis systems aren't super effective because, testing shows that they only hit missiles like 50% of the time. I thought that was gonna be a bigger part of the debate, and I think that that's a place where you're like in a good spot ev-wise for future deterrence debates. That's more or less the decision. You'll have questions.
Yeah. So I go back to the North Korea thing where you talked about like the evidence about the boost phase missile being like having to be close to the site of launch.
Yeah, so, I mean, I cut these cards, so, if you, go on the college wiki, Dartmouth ET read these against Northwestern JW in the semis of Kentucky, but, basically, the people who talk about how to create boost so missiles are a parabola, right? Mm-hmm. The beginning phase is the launch phase, mid-course phase, terminal phase, right? So the boost phase is right at the beginning, right when it launches. And so in order to shoot something in the launch phase, one, you have to know when the launch is going to happen, which is a really big technical barrier. Two, your system has to be close enough to the launch site to hit it while it's launching, because the launching missiles are a whole lot faster than our interception missiles. And so the people who discuss this from a technical efficacy standpoint say just there's no way, it would be ridiculous for us to deploy boost-based missiles and for them to be considered a credible deterrent, because they would basically have to be right next to launch sites, which we cannot put them right next to China's launch sites, and they'd be kind of known as ineffective because if we're not tipped off, right, if it's a surprise attack, then we cannot hit the button fast enough to intercept a missile in boost phase.
So just defense on boost phase itself.
Yeah, okay. And the cards are phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should the Tunar have kicked the counterplan and just gone for appeasement and done more turns casework to mitigate the risk of North Korea?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting 2NR. It's impossible to totally answer the counterfactual, but I would be very interested in hearing how that 2NR goes down.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few questions just about what you think a good link story for the appeasement decide could be in the future, and if you have ideas of search terms or what we can do to have more specific stuff against agents. When I talked to them about some of the evidence about the difference between Aegis ashore and Aegis offshore being the permanency of it, I've seen some of those cards a little bit in the next deterrence direction. So because they are a permanent presence, they are always protecting Japan from a potential Chinese or North Korean attack. And so I think that, maybe that is an explanation. So you've got, so I think you want two parts of it. You want a part that is, both about how China and Japan would perceive Aegis. So, you've got a card that kind of suggests Japan thinks it's important for the deterrence relationship. And they've got cards that say China's scared of it. So you've got that part, but you need another component that's about the technological capacity of Aegis ashore in terms of deterrence. If that makes sense.
I guess I have some questions if you all are done. The SM3 interceptor all cause, I guess I'm just a little confused. So the interceptor, which is the SM3 Block 2A, are those things, so those things can be individually sold without the actual
Yeah,
Aegis
the
systems.
well, the interceptor goes on an Aegis system.
Yeah.
We have Aegis systems that are on naval vessels, so they put the same interceptor on the naval vessel, right? And if the argument is China and Russia think that the SM-3 could, mean they don't have second strike capacity, so they have to modernize, well, we've got a bunch of SM-3 interceptors that are on naval vessels.
Okay, yeah. So, like before this debate, we had a different plain text, and it was just about Aegis Ashore,
Yeah.
which are two systems that are not like on the sea at all. Because like we have that, like
Yeah.
they don't care about the stuff on the sea, but they do care about the new weapons that are going to be on the ground. Do you think that's better? Like we just changed the plain text for this round because of something that happened in our last
Yeah, I was
debate.
gonna say, do you think that the plan, since it says Aegis ballistic missile defenses, could a reasonable, obviously you didn't say this, but could like a reasonable reading of that include reducing SM-3 block to interceptors and like modifications to Aegis systems if the plan reduces Aegis ballistic missile defenses? So if we just characterize the plan as like any upgrades to ships, new Aegis Ashore, SM-3 block to interceptors, do you think that's a reasonable way we could like interpret the plan?
Yeah.
Just saying that is sufficient.
I think when faced with the dilemma of do we make the plan bigger to solve or
Yeah.
not, I always err on make the plan
Right.
bigger to solve. And so I think that is a reasonable thing. And just like, if you just had like one more card that sort of like defined how that process worked, and threw that in the 1AC is just a real quick
Yeah.
like, here's, for clarification, here are all the things the plan does. I think that does resolve some things.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, the conditions counter plan.
Yeah.
I feel like both the 1R and the 2R like went for too many arguments. Do you think we should have just like not gone for like the say no arguments at all, and that would have like saved more time for the disad for like the defensive arguments to develop those more?
I mean, potentially. The odd thing is like at that point you only win the debate if like there's like you absolutely win permuted counter plan.
Right.
It puts you in a little bit of a riskier
Yeah, that's why,
proposition
like,
to do that.
We went for both.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in these debates you sort of have to keep both around. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And that, like, I kind of have two questions about that. First is, I felt like I didn't get to the disad as much time as I wanted. Do you think there are certain parts in the 1AR, I guess, preceding the or before the disad that I could have cut time from, so I could have spent a little more time there? But I see the strategic
Let me run
utility
through
of
some
keeping
stuff.
like perm to the counterplan and say no alive in the 1AR at least. So
Yeah, I mean, conditionality
okay, yeah,
would have been a thing to cut.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then
only big
my
thing.
other question about that was, I really don't remember it right now. I'm sorry.
All good.
It'll come to me. Do you have any others, Randa? Oh, I really want to remember it. Oh, it was a really helpful question. Oh wait, yes. Okay, so the theory stuff. So I didn't
Yeah.
really want to extend the theory since they recut the the 1NC card or the 1AC card. But so do you think the 1AR line that was just like they didn't make like a theory controls competition card or argument? They're distinct options because even if it's like theoretically legitimate, it's not.
Yeah, I think from a
competitive.
like academic debate standpoint, that's probably where I come down on that question. So I think that makes that makes some sense.
Yeah, just since
Yeah.
you said that the 2NR could have made that a bigger deal, just like the 1AR kind
Yeah.
of like insulated us
I
against that.
well, I mean, one thing you could have done is to like insulate yourself from the cross application is just
Yeah.
go there and make a like disads about like unconditional reductions bad disads solve the literature argument.
Okay.
And that would have insulated you from that cross application.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck, y'all.
Yeah, you all too.
Wait, what was the argument that you wanted to do?
Like a reasonable reading of the plan. Since we reduce all ages stuff, that includes like upgrades.
Yeah, okay.
Which I like
Yeah,
just
that makes sense.
yeah, actually should we start here?
Yeah, should we just take it?
I'm trying to figure out if stuff
Right.
is going or not.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. You're after this night. I assume you'll be in here again.
Do you know did NBA win?
I don't. It wasn't posted the last time I looked.
If he hasn't said yet. Yeah.
Serious is good at debate.
Apparently, they're writing on the board live. No one's erased it.